The purpose of law. Before we go to the purpose of law, it is necessary to learn what is law and where is the need for law. Law is a set of rules, instructions, commands, directions, but not like any other set of rules or ethical rules or religious code. Law is a set of rules which has to be obeyed. It is sanctioned, it is backed by force of the state, force of the society, and anyone who does not obey the law will suffer unpleasant consequences. That makes it law different from another or any other set of rules or instructions. It's only law which is backed with the force of the state, and force actually means disobedient will invite violence, punitive action against the individual who disobeys. Therefore, law has the force of changing your behavior, changing the behavior of a group or a society. And the need for law is self-evident. If you're living alone, you will not require any law. You can do whatever you feel like doing that. But the moment you invite your friend to live with you, some kind of rules or law comes into force. If between the two persons one decision is to be obeyed, it will be obeyed because the other person is might, other person is stronger. So between the two persons, the law comes into play, what is called might is right, the law of the jungle. And the moment the group increases to 100, 2000, 3000, 10,000, the might of one individual is never sufficient to counter the might of the group. And thereafter, the rule of law comes into being. Ultimately, the group makes some rules to be obeyed by all. And anyone who disobeys is enforced, the law is enforced by the power of the rest of the members of the group. That is how, whenever you have to socially do anything together, law is not only a necessity, but almost survival instinct. Without survival of the common members of the group, and normally, ordinarily, law has evolved from that practical situation that for survival, maintenance and prosperity and growth of the group, you need certain common rules and everyone has to obey. From this scenario, it almost comes to the point where you think the law is to restrain the stronger. Might is not right, is the law. It seems the purpose of the law is to restrain the stronger members of the group, to ensure, and as a corollary, it also means that the protection of the weak. Law creates a balance. It restrains the stronger, it strengthens the weak, so that everybody is heard and all are forced to conform to the common norms of the group. And here it springs forth that law actually brings about equality. If you have to enforce the law on all members of any society or group or city, equality is inevitable. But that is a result of law. That is not the purpose of law. That happens when everybody is made to conform to a single rule or a single norm or a single behavior. That is what happens. But the purpose of law is ultimately you have to infer. If we come back to our country, our constitution, the strongest entity in the country is the government. It has armed forces to back its decision. It has police force, a whole army of civil servants, and even to make government equal to a single citizen, we have, or the constitution has given us, a judicial machinery to enforce and to come to the rescue of a single citizen. The High Court, the Supreme Court, in the extraordinary writ powers, any individual can come and say, my rights have been violated by the state agency or a state official, and the court must restore that right to me. And that's happening day in and day out. So therefore, even the biggest and the strongest entity, the law tries to make it equal to a small citizen, and thereby some kind of rule of law or semblance of law is restored. The only challenge which we have not able to meet right now, and that's a challenge for most of the lawyers and judges and the lawmakers, how to make multinational cooperation under the law. The state agencies are under the law. The all other people, entities in the state is under the law. But there are entities who are beyond the governments of the day. They are operating in practically whole of the world. How do we bring them under the national law? That is how the present day challenge is. But still, we are still not finding what is the purpose of law. We know, of course, the law is needed. We also know what is law, and is almost a necessity in any kind of complex group living. But the purpose of law, is it to make equality? Is it to bring out prosperity? Is it to bring about a society which is conceived in the constitution of the country? Perhaps the nearest point we go to the purpose of law is that law is a tool. Law can be used for any purpose. Law can be used for creating an unjust society. Law can be made to use. Law can actually is almost a coercive force, but a reasonable coercive force, not a blind revenge force. And therefore, law is often used to change society's value, in which way that society has to move, and therefore, in many ways, law is neutral. Law is actually an instrument, a tool which can be directed to make the whole society move in a particular direction. If we see our constitution, the purpose of law, the aim of law, the aim of the constitution is enshrined in the constitution itself. The preamble says we have given our constitution to ourselves to secure to all its citizens equality, liberty, fraternity, and justice. In fact, justice comes first. Justice, social, economic, political. And the aim is, the purpose is, the object of our constitution is directly engraved in the very first page of the constitution, the preamble. To secure to all its citizens justice, liberty, fraternity, equality. And all laws has to conform to this purpose. To secure to citizens justice, equality, liberty, fraternity. We can understand liberty, we can understand equality. But justice, and that's the first value which the Constitution compels the lawmakers to make every law so that we move toward a society where members have justice. And justice is a very elusive concept. Justice is not a set of rules like law is. Justice is unique. Justice is man to man, case to case, situation to situation. If we try to understand the relation between law and justice, let me go back into some tales of antiquity. tales who have given such great examples of justice that they have got imprinted on human mind, which every generation relishes it, enjoys it, and transmits it to the next generation. The justice of Solomon is well known. It's a biblical tale that two women had just given birth to two children, two sons. One died, one is living, and both are claiming that the child is her, and there are no eyewitnesses. And at that time, 3,000 years ago, King Solomon had no way to know the DNA testing or technology which could have easily proved scientifically in today's world that the child belongs to which mother. The law was that whosoever anything belongs to, that man is entitled to. And if you do not know, then the things will be divided. The law was quite clear. And for the assembly, it looks like a very simple proposition. Since we don't know who is the mother of the child will be given. But how can the child be divided? When the law was read, the king got up and asked for a sword. He said, let the child be divided in accordance with today's laws, and each half of the child, equal in weight, be given to the two women. There was stillness. One woman obeyed her head, signifying that she accepted the judgment. The other started crying. She said, I withdraw my case. I don't want a child. Give it to the other woman. Let the child live. And at that moment, the assembly knew, the king knew, who is the mother of the child, to whom the child belongs. And the judgment was given. The child was given to the mother who had given up her right. Now, law was clear, but this is justice. So law plus wisdom becomes justice. And therefore, the first value, the first purpose of all laws in our country is justice. Justice must be done even though heavens fall. And that's the purpose of law. Justice. We come to another tale, an equally ancient tale. The time of Mahatma Buddha, as Prince Siddhartha and his cousin Prince Devdutt were disputing over a swan which was shot by the arrow of Devdutt. It had fallen. Prince Siddhartha had taken and nursed the bird and the swan to health, and swan was in his lap, and the Prince Devdutt comes and claims, I am the hunter. I have hunted down the swan. This is mine. And that was the law. A hunter hunts, the fruit of the hunting is of the hunter, and nobody could claim it. And if they would have jungle law, they would have fought over it, again by arrows. But since there was law prevailing, and they went to the court, the king, the source of all justice at that time, and the king also knew the first rule of law is to be impartial. And before him, he was his own son and his brother's son. And therefore, he sent the dispute to the assembly of the wise. It was actually assembly of the wise who interpreted the law to say that the hunter has the right and a claim over the hunted bird, provided the bird is dead. If the bird is alive, the bird is free. It belongs to nobody. It belongs to skies. It can fly away. And the bird was given the choice to choose. And the bird went to Siddhartha. And the Siddhartha let him go. That is justice. Law is there. But without wisdom, law actually becomes tyrannical, blind, and therefore the subject of all kind of jokes. It's only when law is tempered with wisdom by and administered by wise men that we have something, that elusive thing, the elusive heavenly thing for which all societies endeavor to reach. Justice in every case. It is fairness in action. I mean, we all know that famous Shakespeare play, The Merchant of Venus. How the justice was done by lawyers quibbling of words, the lawyers splitting of the contract. You have a contract law. Everyone is bound to contract and act in terms of the contract. You have a judge who has to enforce the contract. And you have a greedy man who is seeking a pound of flesh. And the situation was saved. Justice was done. Law was also not violated by saying, yes, he's entitled to the pound of flesh, so long he does not drip or drop a single drop of blood. You can have the pound of flesh nearest to the heart of Antonio, but you must not drop and take away a single drop of blood, because the contract says if Antonio is not able to pay the money due to the Jew, Shylock, he will have 1 pound of flesh, but only 1 pound of flesh, not a single drop of blood. And that's what justice is done in that situation, because ultimately you cannot, under the garb of a civil contract, take somebody's life away. But it required again a wisdom of the lawyer, wisdom of the judge, before the best situation could emerge. So that is how we have the purpose of law is justice. Equality comes about the moment you have rule of law. We always say that we are governed by rule of men or rule of laws. Rule of laws mean that you have a norm which is applicable to all members of society, all citizens, and all act in accordance with that. And therefore, the law as an instrument has power, has force to change your behavior. And anyone who changes, and anything which changes a behavior, is a powerful tool. And that is a constitutional tool of society. You can change, you can reform, you can move forward, but only in accordance with law. That's the usual phrase. So that's the difference between change which is by the law and change which is through sudden violence. And law actually makes our society live in harmony and with peaceful change. If you want a society to change and also without violence, it is best to follow the law. And the law actually creates a situation where justice can be done if you have judges who are wise. So that's the purpose of law, to change the society in the best possible interest of its members in a manner which every day dispenses justice to all the applicants who ask for it. Thank you.